Well, I'm very pleased to be here today. You can tell from the title of my presentation that I want to talk about behavior change, and I want to talk about the role of social norms in creating that change. But I'm going to talk about a particular kind of behavior, environmental behavior. How do we persuade people? How do we motivate people to move in our direction? That's been my research area for decades, but that applies to all kinds of behavior. I want to focus today on how we might persuade people to take environmentally friendly, sustainable action by changing the way we send the message to them. Just changing the words that we use to engage them in that behavior change. So I'll begin with a pair of contentions. The first is that program designers or decision makers can rely too much on economic factors, such as financial benefits, or on legal factors, such as regulations or laws, when seeking to motivate their citizens toward environmental goals. Now, those are effective strategies, there's no question about that, but they incur costs. The financial factors, bonuses, rebates, discounts, incentives of one sort or another, require economic resources that have to be applied to producing the change. And in our world, economic resources are not unlimited. So very often, they do not get applied to that particular crucial issue. I believe the issue of sustainability is as important as there is right now on this planet. But other goals can drive those resources away. So what happens if we don't have those economic resources to provide? Then we often rely on legal factors, regulations, rules, constraints. That provides another kind of cost to the decision maker or the program designer. It's a social cost. It's not an economic capital that we are expending. We're expending social capital because people don't like being constrained. They don't like being regulated. And they resist and they resent those individuals who try to do it. So is there a third way that we could think of that would also be effective but would not incur these costs? I'm going to suggest that indeed, yes, there is. Excuse me. It is the social norms of the situation. Making people aware of, making them conscious of what is the norm in that situation to do. Right? Now, there's the fundamental kind of norm, which is information about what is normal there. What are the people around us, like us, doing there? What have they been doing there? That has an automatic tendency to drive people in that direction. Now, there are some amplifiers of that effect. We are most likely to move in the direction of multiple others and comparable others. Let me give you another way of saying that, and that is, it's what many others do and what similar others do that spurs us to move in that direction. Let me give you an example of how this works in a situation that doesn't involve environmental behavior, but I want to show the reach of this principle of social norms, and indeed even the cross-cultural reach, because it's a study that comes from restaurants in Beijing. Do you know that if the manager of a restaurant, in this case it was a series of restaurants in Beijing, marks the menu with notifications of which are the most popular items on that menu, a number of fascinating things happen. First of all, it produces an increase of 13 to 20% in the sales of those items immediately, without a single cost. The manager doesn't have to put more high-quality ingredients into those, doesn't have to hire a new chef, doesn't have to increase the pleasantness of the decor. No, just point to something that's true. These are the most popular items on this menu. And this applies, by the way, even to those items that people might not always order, starters, for example, or desserts. Suddenly, I know that when I go into a restaurant, I'm thinking, should I have dessert? Maybe I shouldn't. I had a big breakfast. I expect to have a large dinner. If I see on the menu, this is our most popular dessert, suddenly I have a reason to eat dessert that I didn't have before. Suddenly. And it's a real reason. It's a reason that benefits all of us. I get a great dessert because it's the most popular one, and the owner, the restaurateur, gets an order for everyone benefits, except perhaps my waistline, which suffers. Secondly, notice that that strategy is not only effective, it is completely inexpensive, completely unpressured, completely honest, and here's the interesting thing, almost never employed. I've been counting. Fewer than 90% of 10% of the restaurants where I patronize say that on the menu. Now, I want to make a comment at this point. When you go back to your offices tomorrow, people might ask you about the ZURICH.MINDS event, and you say there were interesting speakers. There was this one guy who talked about persuasion and influence. Oh, what did he say? Well, he told us that people want to do what they see others doing. You know what your colleague will say to you? With this, he makes a living. Really? I knew that. Everybody knows that. You wasted your time. Tell them about the Beijing restaurant study and say, if everyone knows that, why is it that in 90% of the restaurants that we frequent, there is no such message on the menu, if everyone knows this? See, we know these principles, and there are other universal principles of human behavior at a superficial level, but we don't know how to activate them optimally. We don't know how to amplify them optimally. Let me give you an example from environmental setting. It's the hotel towel research study that I and my team members did. If you travel at all, you know that in 70% of the restaurants that you frequent, somewhere in the room, there is a sign that the manager has put there asking you to reuse your towels and linen. Here's an example of one. Very often there is some nearly extinct woodland creature on the sign, and they ask us to save the environment by reusing their towels. We decided to see if there was a special kind of message we could put on that sign that would be more successful than the typical message. Here's an example of our sign that we put on in hotel rooms, 3 separate hotel rooms in the Phoenix, Arizona area in the United States where I live. Right? It said, help save the environment. That's the standard one. All those hotel managers want us to save the environment. They want us to save resources. They want us to save the earth. But we know they want to save something else too. They want to save costs. So what can they do? Well, they can say, save the environment, and hope that will spur us. But there are some especially clever ones now who have decided to use a principle of social behavior that says people prefer to do things in partnership with others, in collaboration, in cooperation with others. So some hotel chains are now saying on the sign, right, partner with us toward this common cause by hang up your towels, right? So we put different signs like that randomly in these hotel rooms, and then we checked to see how many people actually hung up their towels. We were in league with the maids, right, who made a check mark. And let me show you what happened. On any one night, if the message said, do this for the environment, an average of about 38% of the people helped on that one night. Right? Usually more than 50% help at some time during their stay, but on one night, about 38%. If it said partner with us, any ideas about what the percentage would be under those circumstances? Any ideas? 50%? Nothing. Why? Because you don't get to just claim a partnership. You have to earn a partnership in order to get people to play with that system. This was what the hotel managers were saying to us. You pay us 295 euros tonight, and tomorrow you don't get to use a fluffy towel. That was their deal? It was no deal. But we had a third message, an honest message. It was one that employed the social norms. It said, the majority of guests at our hotel do reuse their towels at least once at some time during their stay. And under those circumstances, we get the most we have ever gotten. Now, here's an interesting question. Is there an even more impactful message that we can send, knowing what we know about the theory of social norms? There is. Remember what we said, is that we don't follow the lead of many others only. We particularly follow the lead of similar others. So we had a fourth sign. This one didn't say the majority of guests who stayed in our hotel in the past have reused their towels at least once. It said the majority of guests who've stayed in this room have reused it. Room 215, just like you. And under those circumstances, we get the most we have ever got. Now, let me say there are two notable things about this set of results. The first is those most successful strategies were both honest and inexpensive to employ. Secondly, we've never seen either of them in any city, in any hotel, in any guest room in the world. These aren't things that emerge as best practices within the organization. You have to know the behavioral science to hone your message properly. Why don't they know the behavioral science? Because on their board of directors, on their board of advisors, there will be someone from finance, there will be someone from logistics, there will be someone from transportation, there will be a legal person, and there will never be a behavioral scientist. There will never be a PhD level decision scientist on their board. And it's a mistake. It's a costly mistake. Okay, let's ask another question. All right. Well, is there any evidence that this normative information about similar others can influence what people do in their homes with energy conservation? Yes, there is. Yes, there is. Let me tell you about a study that I did with my colleagues, especially Dr. Wesley Schultz. We went to San Diego, California, and in random homes in particular neighborhoods, once a week for a month, we put a door hanger on the doors of homes in this neighborhood that had different messages. And we wanted to see what messages would be most effective in getting them to reduce their energy consumption that month. We also had a control group. One control group was some houses didn't get any message. We wanted to see what So we wanted to compare the messages to that. We had a second control group where we had a sign that simply urged people to conserve energy. Here's the first finding. At the end of the month, when we looked at their energy usage, those two groups were identical. So simply urging people, simply exhorting people to save energy was the same as nothing. It was the same as nothing. They needed a reason. Well, let's talk about some reasons that we put on that sign. One reason is one you've heard: do this to save the environment. Another was, do this to be a socially responsible citizen, to benefit the society. A third was, do this for your own economic self-interest, so that you will save money at the end of the month on your utility bill. And the fourth was, the majority of your neighbors are undertaking energy-conserving actions on a daily basis, something we had found in a survey. Let me show you the daily kilowatt-hour usage of those signs plus the control group. Right? So here is the sign. Right? This is the combined control group. Environmental protection, benefit to society, saving money, produce small deflections. The only one that made a significant difference is what your neighbors are doing. And it was true. We just had to point to it. Okay, let's finish up here by asking this question. How can we use this set of insights to advance national energy goals? Right? One possibility is to involve the private sector in the process. There is a company in the United States, I happen to be the scientific advisor for this company, called OPOWER. They've taken our results, and now they send consumers of utilities, energy companies, a message every month, not telling them how much energy they used last month, which you probably get in your message. They tell them how much energy you use compared to your neighbor. That's all, just compared to your neighbor. It looks like this. And let me show you the results in terms of energy savings. Right? The longer these numbers are, the different utilities, the longer this is in place, the more energy is saved. It's now 3 years into the full commercial rollout of this company, and it has saved 1.7 billion kilowatt hours for telling people something honest. All right? Let's finish. The way I started with my contentions. Decision makers can focus too much on economic and legal reasons to motivate people. There are other reasons that don't just apply to energy, apply to general behavior. Besides this one, there are others, but social norms is one we should not forget. Thank you very much for your kind attention.